So Jamie, we've just heard the news that the British Boxing Board has downgraded Ian John Lewis following his scorecard after the Jack Catterall Josh Taylor fight. What do you know about this, and what are your thoughts on this new development?
Well, I've just read the letter, and it's disappointing, to be honest. You know, they've downgraded Ian John Lewis for what reason? If they're happy with his scoring of the fight, you know, they said they don't disagree with the judgment. It didn't affect the scoring, which is nonsense because it was a split decision, which it shouldn't have been, but it was. So that means that obviously his scoring of the fight directly affected the scoring of the fight. And then the last paragraph says they're going to lodge with the world governing bodies to make Jack mandatory challenger for them all. So that means, without actually saying it, that they agree that there's an injustice and they want somebody else to do something about it, i.e. the governing bodies. So they're just passing on the blame basically, and it's just not good enough, long and short of it.
So they've said, the British Board, that they're going to be contacting each of the four main governing bodies and asking if Jack Catterall can be made mandatory. How do you see that playing out? Because obviously Josh Taylor is likely to move up and vacate, which means the belts will get split. How might this play out?
Well, that's one thing that we expected and wanted them to do, obviously, because the more people fighting our corner and trying to sort of right these wrongs for Jack, there's more weight behind it. But you can't put that in the same letter as saying we don't believe there's an injustice. It just doesn't make sense. So you know, it's just very fresh. I've literally only just read that letter, and it's disappointing. But I know Jack's team behind the scenes are all pushing for the right sort of things to be done, try and make sure that he fights for the vacant titles if and when Josh gives them up. And if he's not going to give them up, then try and make the right decision and get the rematch going.
And we also heard that the WBO had objected to two of the referees, obviously Ian John Lewis being one of them, being appointed by the British Board before the fight. So the fact that the British Board have come out afterwards and actually downgraded one of the referees, what does this say to you about what's going on, and whether there needs to be a deeper look at what's going on at the British Board and the referee decisions?
For a start, we never knew about that. We never knew that the WBO had put a complaint in. So maybe this is something what needs to be spoke about, that, you know, if there is a discrepancy going on about the judging or the referee, for instance, then surely all teams who are involved should know about that. And as far as we're concerned, we didn't know about that. So if they had a problem with the judges, why did they have a problem with them? And you know, there's been stuff said about Josh was presented with a belt, which meant that he challenges Terence Crawford at the weigh-in, which means that they was presuming that Josh Taylor was going to beat Jack Catterall, which is insane. So there's so many things going on, and it's disappointing, really.
Is there any consolation in the fact that they have downgraded the one referee, and perhaps Jack Catterall will get a look in by maybe if it's one of the belts, if not all of them?
The only consolation will be if Jack gets a direct shot at one of the world titles, if Josh gives them up. I know that his promotional team are pushing to make sure they're getting the best deals possible. And you know, one thing good what's come out of it is that everybody's on Jack's side. He's created a massive fan base now because people realise how good he is. So there is some good things come of it, but the sickening one is he'll never ever get that moment back, what he deserved. He's worked all his life for it, and that moment, what every young kid wants to hear, and the new, he'll never get that moment back, and he'll never have the belts on his mantelpiece.
A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And just finally, Frank Warren came out and said that he doesn't want any British referees at the Tyson Fury-Dillian Whyte fight. What are your thoughts on that? Is this really a British situation that's being targeted?
Well, I mean, we're not the only people who put out bad decisions, but unless people start making a stand like that, then nothing's ever going to change. If you keep repeating the same mistake, then it's not a mistake. So something's got to be done. And you know, I seen Tyson Fury's interview with Carl Frampton, and he was bang on. He said, you know, I don't want that to happen in my fight, so I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen. And it's people like him and the big promoters and the managers and the fighters it's going to take them to speak out like we are doing now, because something's been done, but something good enough's not been done, and this has been on the biggest stage. So if something, if justice isn't done properly now, when is it ever going to be done? So even though we haven't got the result what we wanted, we need to keep pushing with this. Not necessarily just for Jack's fight, but for boxing in good, because if it doesn't change now, over the next 10 years, it's going to keep going down a slippery slope, and the reputation of boxing is going to be ruined forever. And we can't afford for that to happen. It's the best sport in the world, and we need to build its reputation rather than ruin it.